The vast emptiness of space stretched out in all directions. Among the twinkling stars and swirling galaxies, a massive fleet of ships drifted silently. These were not ordinary ships. They belonged to the Zorthians, one of the most advanced alien civilizations in the known universe. The Zorthian fleet was a sight to behold. Hundreds of massive ships, each the size of a small moon, floated in a precise formation. Their sleek, silver hulls gleamed in the light of distant stars. Under normal circumstances, these ships could cross galaxies in the blink of an eye. But now, they were as helpless as leaves caught in a stream. Inside the flagship, alarms blared. Red lights flashed, casting an eerie glow over the worried faces of the Zorthian crew. Captain Zix, a tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms, rushed onto the bridge. His usually calm demeanor was replaced by barely contained panic. "Status report," Zix barked, his voice echoing in the cavernous command center. A young officer, her hands shaking, replied, "Captain, our propulsion systems have failed completely. We're stuck in some kind of cosmic anomaly. Our sensors can't make sense of it." Zix's 4 eyes widened in disbelief. He turned to the main view screen, which showed a strange, swirling distortion in space. It was like a whirlpool made of stars and darkness, slowly pulling the fleet towards its center. "Have we contacted the homeworld?" Zix asked, his voice tight with worry. Another officer shook his head. "No, sir. Our long-range communications are being blocked by the anomaly. We're cut off." The gravity of the situation sank in. The pride of the Zorthian civilization, their most advanced fleet, was trapped and alone in an unknown part of the universe. Billions of lives were at stake, not just the crew, but also the countless refugees and colonists the fleet was transporting to a new home. Captain Zix made a decision. "Prepare the quantum beacon," he ordered. "We're going to send out a distress signal." The crew looked at him in shock. The quantum beacon was a device of last resort, capable of sending a message across vast distances of space. But it was risky. The signal could be intercepted by anyone or anything. As the beacon was prepared, Zix composed the message. It was simple, yet desperate. "To any advanced civilization who can hear this, we are the Zorthians. Our fleet is stranded in an unknown spatial anomaly. We need help. Please respond." With a nod from the captain, the signal was sent. It raced across the cosmos, passing countless stars and planets. The Zorthians waited, hope mixing with fear in their hearts. Light years away, on a small blue planet called Earth, in a modest research facility nestled in the mountains, a computer began to beep. Dr. Aisha Khan, a brilliant astrophysicist with wild curly hair and perpetually tired eyes, looked up from her coffee mug. "That's odd," she muttered, moving to the computer. Her eyes widened as she read the incoming data. "Oh my God," she whispered, her coffee forgotten. Aisha's fingers flew over the keyboard, decoding the strange signal. As the message became clear, her heart began to race. Aliens, real, living aliens were calling for help. She grabbed her phone, her hand shaking with excitement. "Director, you need to come see this. Now." Within hours, the tiny mountain facility was swarming with government officials and military personnel. Aisha found herself explaining the situation to a room full of serious-faced men and women in suits. "The signal is genuine," she said, her voice steady despite her nerves. "An alien fleet is stranded and asking for our help." A general scoffed. "Why would advanced aliens need our help?" Aisha smiled. "That's the interesting part, sir. Whatever has trapped them is beyond even their technology. This could be our chance to prove ourselves on a galactic stage." As debates raged in governments around the world, the Zorthian fleet drifted closer to the heart of the anomaly. Captain Zix stared out at the swirling chaos, wondering if help would arrive in time. Little did he know, on a small planet called Earth, a most unlikely rescue mission was about to begin. The humans, with their primitive technology but indomitable spirit, were preparing to answer the call. The greatest adventure in human history was about to unfold, all because of a desperate signal from the stars. The news spread like wildfire. Within days, the whole world knew about the alien distress signal. People everywhere were talking about it. In homes, offices, and on the streets, everyone had the same question: what will we do? Dr. Aisha Khan found herself at the center of it all. She had gone from a quiet scientist to a global celebrity overnight. News channels wanted to interview her. World leaders wanted her advice. It was exciting, but also very scary. One morning, Aisha was called to a big meeting in Washington, D.C. She stood in front of a room full of important people. There were presidents, prime ministers, and military leaders from all over the world. "Dr. Khan," said the U.S. president, "can you explain the situation one more time?" Aisha took a deep breath. "Of course," she said. "We received a distress signal from an alien race called the Zorthians. They are very advanced, but their fleet is trapped in a strange space anomaly. They need our help." A general frowned. "But why us? We're not as advanced as they are." Aisha smiled. "That's true, but we might see things differently. Sometimes, a fresh perspective can solve problems that advanced technology can't." The room was quiet for a moment. Then, the Chinese president spoke up. "What if it's a trick? What if they want to invade us?" Aisha shook her head. "I don't think so. The signal seems genuine. Plus, if they wanted to invade, why ask for help? They could just come here." The leaders talked for hours. Some were excited about meeting aliens. Others were scared. But in the end, they all agreed on one thing: humanity had to respond. The next day, the world watched as all the major leaders made a joint announcement on TV. "We, the nations of Earth, have decided to answer the Zorthian call for help," they said. "We will launch a mission to save the alien fleet." The announcement caused both excitement and fear around the world. Some people cheered the decision. Others protested, saying it was too dangerous. But for Aisha and her team, there was no time for debate. They had work to do. They needed to prepare Earth's first interstellar rescue mission. The world's best scientists, engineers, and astronauts were called in. They named the mission Operation Stellar Bridge. It would be the biggest, most difficult thing humans had ever tried to do. Aisha worked day and night with her team. They had to figure out how to reach the Zorthians. Earth's spaceships weren't fast enough to get there in time. They needed a new solution. One night, as Aisha was looking at star maps, she had an idea. She rushed to her computer and started typing fast. Hours passed, and the sun was rising when she finally looked up. "I got it," she shouted, startling her sleeping colleagues. "We can use the Zorthians' own technology to reach them." She explained her plan. They would build a device to amplify and reflect the Zorthians' quantum signal. If it worked, they could create a temporary wormhole to the alien fleet. The plan was risky. No one had ever made a wormhole before, but it was the only way to reach the Zorthians in time. As word of the plan spread, volunteers came forward from all over the world. Retired astronauts offered to fly the mission. Engineers worked round the clock to build the new device. Even school children sent in their ideas to help. Aisha was amazed by how everyone was working together. "Maybe this is why the signal came to us," she thought. "Maybe the Zorthians knew that humans are good at working together when things get tough." 2 months after receiving the signal, Earth was ready. A small fleet of ships stood ready for launch. They carried the best technology Earth had, plus Aisha's new wormhole device. As the ships prepared for takeoff, Aisha looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Zorthians were waiting. Earth's greatest adventure was about to begin. The countdown started. 10, 9, 8. Aisha held her breath. This was it. Humanity's first step into a larger universe. 3, 2, 1. The ships roared to life, shooting into the sky. Aisha watched them go, hope and fear mixing in her heart. The mission to save the Zorthians had begun. The day had finally come. Earth's rescue fleet was ready to launch. 5 ships stood on the launch pad, gleaming in the morning sun. They weren't as big or advanced as the Zorthian ships, but they carried humanity's hopes and dreams. The biggest ship was called Unity. It was Earth's most advanced spaceship, but it still looked small compared to what they knew about the Zorthian fleet. The other 4 ships were smaller and faster. They were named after famous explorers: Columbus, Zheng He, Amelia, and Neil. Inside Unity, the crew was getting ready. Captain Sarah Chen checked her uniform one last time. She was nervous but excited. "This is it, folks," she said to her crew. "We're about to make history." Dr. Aisha Khan was there too. She wasn't just the scientist who decoded the alien message. Now she was part of the mission. Her job was to operate the special wormhole device. The crew was unlike any before. There were astronauts and scientists, of course, but there were also people you wouldn't expect on a space mission. There was Mike, a plumber from New York. He was good at fixing things in tight spaces. There was Zora, a teenager who won a global problem-solving contest. And there was Old Joe, a retired miner who knew all about working in dangerous conditions. "Are you sure about this crew?" a general had asked Aisha earlier. She had smiled and said, "We're not just sending a spaceship. We're sending the best of humanity. We need all kinds of skills for this mission." Now, as the countdown began, Aisha looked at the diverse crew around her. She felt proud. This was humanity at its best, working together to help others. 10, 9, 8. The voice over the speaker was calm, but everyone's hearts were racing. 7, 6, 5. Engines started to rumble. The whole ship began to shake. 4, 3, 2. Aisha closed her eyes and held her breath. 1. Liftoff. With a mighty roar, the 5 ships lifted off the ground. Flames burst from their engines as they pushed against Earth's gravity. Slowly at first, then faster and faster, they rose into the sky. On the ground, millions of people watched. They cheered as the ships disappeared into the clouds. For the first time in history, humans were leaving their solar system. In space, the 5 ships formed a V shape with Unity in the lead. They flew past the Moon, then Mars, then up beyond the orbit of Pluto. They were going faster than any human ship had ever gone before. But they needed to go even faster. That's where Aisha's device came in. "All right, Dr. Khan," said Captain Chen. "It's time. Let's see if your wormhole maker works." Aisha nodded and turned to her controls. This was the moment of truth. If this didn't work, they'd never reach the Zorthians in time. She pressed a button, and a beam of energy shot out from Unity. It looked like a bright blue laser stretching out into space. The beam hit an invisible point, and suddenly, space itself seemed to twist. A gasp went through the ship. Where the beam hit, a swirling circle of light appeared. It looked like a whirlpool made of stars. "It worked," Aisha shouted. "That's our wormhole." Captain Chen didn't waste a second. "All ships, follow me. We're going in." Unity flew straight into the wormhole. The other ships followed close behind. As they entered, the crew felt a strange pulling sensation. Stars streaked past them like lines of light. For a few seconds, everything was chaos. Then suddenly, they were through. The wormhole disappeared behind them. Ahead, they saw something that made them all stare in wonder. Hundreds of massive ships floated in space. Each one was bigger than a city. They were silver and sleek, more advanced than anything humans had ever seen. Strange lights flickered across their surfaces, and all around the ships was a swirling, colorful mist. It was beautiful, but it was clear the ships couldn't move through it. "There they are," Aisha whispered. "The Zorthian fleet." For a moment, everyone was quiet. They had done it. They had crossed vast distances of space to reach the stranded aliens. But the real challenge was just beginning. Captain Chen's voice broke the silence. "All right, people. Let's go say hello to our new alien friends. And then, let's figure out how to save them." As Unity led the human ships towards the massive alien fleet, everyone felt a mix of excitement and fear. They had made it this far. Now they had to prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars. As the Earth ships approached the massive Zorthian fleet, everyone held their breath. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the first face-to-face meeting between humans and aliens. Captain Sarah Chen's voice crackled over the radio. "Zorthian fleet, this is Captain Chen of the Earth ship Unity. We received your distress call, and we're here to help." For a long moment, there was silence. Then, a deep, strange voice responded. "Earth ship Unity, this is High Commander Zix of the Zorthian fleet. We welcome you." The voice sounded hesitant, almost confused. Dr. Aisha Khan frowned. "They don't sound very happy to see us," she whispered to Captain Chen. Suddenly, a bright light engulfed Unity. When it faded, Captain Chen, Dr. Khan, and 3 other crew members found themselves in a large, shiny room. They were aboard the Zorthian ship. In front of them stood several tall, blue-skinned aliens. Each had 4 arms and large, curious eyes. The one in the middle stepped forward. "I am High Commander Zix," he said. His voice sounded different in person, less deep, more squeaky. "We are surprised by your arrival." Captain Chen bowed slightly. "We're honored to meet you, High Commander. We came as fast as we could when we received your distress signal." Zix and the other Zorthians looked at each other. They seemed confused. "But you are humans," Zix said. "Your technology is primitive compared to ours. How can you help us?" Aisha felt her face get hot. She didn't like being called primitive. "With all due respect, High Commander," she said, "sometimes fresh eyes can see solutions that others miss." Zix looked at her, all 4 of his eyes blinking rapidly. "And who are you, small human?" "I'm Dr. Aisha Khan," she replied, standing tall despite feeling very small next to the aliens. "I'm the one who decoded your message and designed the wormhole that brought us here." The Zorthians whispered among themselves. Zix looked impressed. "You created a wormhole. Perhaps we underestimated you, humans." Over the next few hours, the humans and Zorthians talked. There were many misunderstandings. The Zorthians couldn't understand why humans would risk their lives to help strangers. The humans were confused by the Zorthians' formal way of speaking and their strange sense of humor. At one point, Mike the plumber made a joke. "Why did the alien cross the galaxy? To get to the other side." He laughed, but the Zorthians just stared at him blankly. "I do not understand," Zix said. "Why would an alien perform such an inefficient method of travel?" Despite these challenges, both sides tried their best to communicate. The humans explained their plan to study the anomaly and find a way to free the Zorthian fleet. "But your ships are so small," one Zorthian scientist said. "How can they withstand the forces of the anomaly?" Captain Chen smiled. "Sometimes, being small has its advantages. We can go where your big ships can't." As they talked, something strange happened. The Zorthians began to relax. They started asking questions about Earth, about human culture and history. "You mean you have many different languages on your planet?" Zix asked, amazed. "How do you communicate?" "We learn each other's languages," Aisha explained. "It's not always easy, but it helps us understand each other better." Zix nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps that is why you are good at solving problems. You are used to seeing things from different perspectives." As the day went on, the initial awkwardness began to fade. The humans showed their resourcefulness, coming up with creative ideas that the Zorthians had never considered. The Zorthians, in turn, shared their advanced knowledge, helping the humans understand the anomaly better. By the end of the day, both sides had gained a new respect for each other. They weren't just aliens anymore. They were becoming friends. As the humans prepared to return to their ship, Zix approached Captain Chen. "Captain," he said, his voice softer than before, "I must apologize. We doubted you when you arrived. But now I see that you're humanity. may be exactly what we need to solve this crisis. Captain Chen smiled. That's all right, High Commander. We're just glad we can help. Tomorrow, we'll start working on getting your fleet out of this anomaly. As they beamed back to Unity, Aisha felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. They had made a good start, but the real challenge was still ahead. Could they really save the Zorthian fleet? Only time would tell. The next day, work began in earnest. Humans and Zorthians formed mixed teams to study the strange anomaly that had trapped the alien fleet. It was like nothing anyone had ever seen before, a swirling mass of energy that defied the laws of physics as both races understood them. Dr. Aisha Khan found herself working closely with Zix, the Zorthian High Commander. Despite their differences, they made a good team. Aisha's creative thinking complemented Zix's vast knowledge. It's like a cosmic whirlpool, Aisha said, looking at the 3D model of the anomaly. But what's causing it? Zix nodded, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. We've tried every scan we know. The anomaly seems to be alive, somehow. As they worked, the human crew showed their worth. Mike the plumber noticed a pattern in the energy flows that the scientists had missed. It's like the pipes in an old building, he said. The flow isn't smooth, it's got kinks. Zara, the teenage contest winner, had an idea. What if we send a small probe into the anomaly? Like, really small, nano-sized. The Zorthians were impressed. They had thought of probes, but not ones that small. Together, humans and aliens built a fleet of nanoprobes and sent them into the swirling energy. Hours passed as they waited for results. Everyone was tense. If this didn't work, they'd be back to square one. Suddenly, the computers beeped. Data from the probes was coming in. Aisha and Zix rushed to look at it, but what they saw made no sense. This can't be right, Aisha muttered. The readings showed impossible things, energy patterns that shouldn't exist, particles that changed their nature every second. But as they looked closer, a pattern emerged. Hidden in the chaos was a repeating sequence, like a code. It's artificial, Zix said, his voice filled with awe. This anomaly. Someone made it. The revelation shocked everyone. This wasn't a natural phenomenon. It was a construct of incredible complexity. As they dug deeper into the data, they found more. Hidden in the heart of the anomaly was a massive structure. It was ancient, far older than either human or Zorthian civilization. It's like a giant machine. Old Joe, the retired miner, said. Bet it's got a power source somewhere. The Zorthians were skeptical, but the humans insisted on exploring this idea. They sent more probes, looking for anything that might be a power source. Days passed. The teams worked around the clock, fueled by excitement and the thrill of discovery. Humans and Zorthians learned from each other, combining their skills in new ways. Finally, after a week of non-stop work, they found something. Deep in the heart of the anomaly, there was a core of incredible energy. It pulsed with power, feeding the swirling chaos around it. That's it, Aisha exclaimed. That's what's powering this whole thing. But understanding the anomaly was only half the battle. Now they had to figure out how to shut it down and free the Zorthian fleet. Zix looked worried. The energy levels are beyond anything we've ever dealt with. If we make a mistake, we could destroy ourselves and half this sector of space. The mood in the room darkened. The challenge seemed impossible. But then, Aisha had an idea. What if we don't try to shut it down? She said. Everyone looked at her in surprise. What if we try to communicate with it instead? At first, the idea seemed crazy. How could they communicate with a machine? But as Aisha explained her thinking, both humans and Zorthians got excited. The code they had discovered wasn't just a power signature, it was a language. The machine wasn't just a trap, it was trying to say something. For the next few days, the best minds from both species worked on decoding this ancient language. It was like nothing they had ever seen before, But slowly they began to understand. As the pieces fell into place, an incredible story emerged. The anomaly wasn't a trap, it was a test. An ancient, long-gone civilization had built it as a way to find other intelligent life. Any species that could understand and communicate with the anomaly would prove themselves worthy of the ancient civilization's legacy. Aisha and Zix looked at each other, their eyes wide with the implications of what they had discovered. They weren't just solving a puzzle, they were on the verge of unlocking the secrets of an incredibly advanced ancient civilization. As they prepared to send their response to the anomaly, everyone held their breath. Would it work? And if it did, what wonders or dangers might they unleash? The fate of the Zorthian fleet, and perhaps the future of both their species, hung in the balance. With a mixture of fear and hope, Aisha pressed the button to transmit their message into the heart of the anomaly. The moment Aisha pressed the button to send their message into the anomaly, everything changed. The swirling energy started to pulse with new colors. It was as if the ancient machine was waking up. Suddenly, alarms blared across both the human and Zorthian ships. Zix rushed to a control panel, his 4 arms moving quickly over the buttons. "The anomaly is expanding," he shouted. "It's growing faster than we predicted." Captain Chen's voice came over the comm system. "All ships, pull back. We need to regroup." As the fleet retreated to a safe distance, they watched in awe and fear as the anomaly grew. It was now twice its original size and still expanding. "What have we done?" Aisha whispered, her eyes wide with shock. But before anyone could answer, a new signal came through. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before. A complex pattern of light and energy that somehow formed words in both human and Zorthian languages. "Worthy ones," the message read, "you have passed the first test. But the true challenge begins now. Save yourselves and others from the cosmic forge, or be consumed by it." The room erupted into chaos. Humans and Zorthians alike were shouting, trying to understand what was happening. But Aisha and Zix remained calm, their minds already racing to find a solution. "It's not just a test anymore," Aisha said. "It's a threat to this entire sector of space." Zix nodded grimly. "We must find a way to stop it, or countless worlds could be destroyed." The next few hours were a blur of activity. The combined human-Zorthian team worked frantically to understand the cosmic forge and find a way to shut it down. They discovered that the anomaly was using the energy of space itself to grow. The more it expanded, the more power it had to expand further. It was a vicious cycle that would soon be unstoppable. "We need to disrupt its energy flow," one of the Zorthian scientists suggested. "But how?" asked Mike the plumber. "It's not like we can just put a wrench in it." That's when Zara, the teenage genius, had an idea. "What if we could? Not a real wrench, but something like it. A device that could interrupt the energy patterns." The idea sparked a flurry of activity. Humans and Zorthians worked together, combining their technologies in ways neither had imagined before. They created a device they called the Cosmic Wrench, a probe that could enter the anomaly and disrupt its core. But there was a problem. The probe had to be manually controlled from inside the anomaly. Someone would have to pilot a ship into the heart of the cosmic forge. A heavy silence fell over the room. It was practically a suicide mission. Whoever went in might never come out. Captain Chen stepped forward. "I'll do it," she said firmly. But Zix shook his head. "No, Captain. Your ship is too large. It would be detected and destroyed before it could reach the core. We need something smaller, more maneuverable." That's when Old Joe spoke up. "What about the mining pods we brought along? They're small, tough, and built for tight spaces." Everyone turned to look at the old miner. It was a crazy idea, but it just might work. "I'll pilot it," Aisha said, standing up. "I understand the anomaly better than anyone. It has to be me." Zix looked at her with all 4 of his eyes. "Dr. Khan, you do realize the danger. The chances of survival are minimal." Aisha nodded, her face determined. "I know, but we don't have a choice. The fate of countless worlds depends on this." The next hour was a rush of preparation. The mining pod was quickly fitted with the cosmic wrench and all the shielding they could manage. Aisha put on a spacesuit and prepared to board. Just before she climbed in, Zix approached her. "Aisha," he said, using her first name for the first time, "your bravery honors us all. May the stars guide you safely home." Aisha smiled and gave a thumbs up, a human gesture that Zix had come to understand meant good luck. As the pod launched towards the heart of the cosmic forge, everyone held their breath. The fate of not just the Zorthian fleet, but countless worlds rested on the shoulders of one brave human scientist. The mining pod disappeared into the swirling energy of the anomaly. Now, all they could do was wait and hope that Aisha's bravery and human ingenuity would be enough to save them all. The tiny mining pod, with Aisha inside, disappeared into the swirling chaos of the cosmic forge. On both the human and Zorthian ships, everyone watched their screens in tense silence. Minutes felt like hours as they waited for any sign of success or failure. Suddenly, the instruments went crazy. Energy readings from the anomaly spiked to levels they had never seen before. The cosmic forge pulsed with blinding light, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. "What's happening?" Captain Chen demanded. Zix, his four hands flying over the controls, shook his head. "I don't know. The energy patterns are changing." Just when it seemed like the cosmic forge would tear itself apart, everything went quiet. The swirling energy slowed, then started to shrink. Bit by bit, the anomaly grew smaller. A cheer went up from both human and Zorthian crews, but their joy was short-lived as they realized something was missing. "Where's the mining pod?" Old Joe asked, his voice tight with worry. "Where's Dr. Khan?" They scanned the area where the anomaly had been, searching desperately for any sign of Aisha or her pod, but there was nothing. Hours passed. Hope began to fade. It seemed that Aisha had sacrificed herself to save them all. Zix approached Captain Chen, his usual formal manner gone. "Captain," he said softly, "Dr. Khan's bravery will never be forgotten. She has saved not just our fleet, but countless worlds." Chen nodded, fighting back tears. "She represented the best of humanity. We'll make sure her sacrifice is remembered." Just then, a junior officer shouted, "Captain, we're picking up a signal." Everyone rushed to the screens. There, at the edge of their sensors, was a faint distress beacon. It was coming from Aisha's pod. "She's alive," Chen shouted. "Quick, send a rescue team." The rescue was tricky. The pod had been flung far from the anomaly's original location, but working together, the humans and Zorthians managed to retrieve it. When they opened the pod, they found Aisha unconscious but alive. As the medical team rushed her to the infirmary, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Days later, when Aisha finally woke up, she had an incredible story to tell. "The cosmic forge," she said, her voice weak but excited. "It wasn't just a test. It was a key." She explained that when she used the cosmic wrench, it didn't just stop the anomaly. It unlocked vast stores of knowledge left behind by the ancient civilization. They wanted to make sure only species who could work together could access it, she said. The implications were enormous. The knowledge they had gained would advance both human and Zorthian civilizations by centuries, if not millennia. In the weeks that followed, as Aisha recovered and the Zorthian fleet prepared to return home, a new era of cooperation began. The United Galactic Council was formed, with both humans and Zorthians as founding members. Earth, once considered a backwater planet, was now recognized as a major player in galactic politics. Humans were respected for their bravery, creativity, and ability to think outside the box. On the day the Zorthian fleet was ready to depart, a grand ceremony was held. Zix, speaking to a crowd of humans and Zorthians, said, "Today, we are no longer two separate species. We are friends, allies, and fellow explorers of the cosmos. Aisha, standing beside Captain Chen, smiled as she looked out at the crowd. Humans and Zorthians stood side by side, their differences forgotten in the face of their shared adventure. As the ceremony ended and the Zorthian ships prepared to leave, Zix approached Aisha one last time. "Dr. Khan," he said, "you have changed the course of galactic history. What will you do now?" Aisha grinned, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Well," she said, "we got a whole universe to explore, don't we? And who knows what other ancient mysteries are out there, waiting to be solved." Zix made a sound that Aisha had learned was Zorthian laughter. "Indeed," he said, "and I have a feeling that wherever those mysteries are, humans will be right in the middle of solving them." As the Zorthian fleet lifted off, humans waved goodbye to their new friends. But it wasn't really goodbye. It was the beginning of a new adventure, a new chapter in the story of both their species. And as the ships disappeared into the stars, Aisha knew that the greatest journey was just beginning. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, and the future was brighter than they had ever imagined.